Welcome back to Coding with Kevin. Today I'm going to teach you guys exactly what I did to pass a technical question in a coding interview to get my position as an architect at American Express. The question was, build me a autocomplete field with React and do it live. So I didn't have time to really prepare and figure this out ahead of time. This was like, hey, I'm on a Zoom call, I'm in the interview, I'm screen sharing, and I'm building this for the interviewer live. Now it was really fun. Luckily I had already been up to date on the intricacies of React. I've understood React hooks and had actually built a pretty significant side project already. So I'm gonna walk you through my thought process. I'll take you through the code, we'll build it together, and I hope you learned something along the way. Before we get into it, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below because there's gonna be more of these videos coming at you. Without further ado, let's go. All right, so in your command prompt, you're gonna run the command npx create react app autocomplete field. That's what we're gonna call it. So npx is without having to install something via npm, it just grabs a command that is associated with that library, and then you can run that command without installing it completely. And then we're calling our project autocomplete field. And so it's gonna go ahead and install, blah, blah, blah. You'll know when it's done when it says happy hacking. So we're gonna cd into autocomplete field, and then, cd field, and then we're gonna do code period to bring up VS Code. Okay, so I'm gonna toggle my terminal on. Yep, we're just gonna hit that. And our app.js is here. I'm assuming that you're already familiar with React, but if you're just getting started, here's a quick rundown of how it works as soon as you install it. So if you do npm start, it's gonna go ahead and run some scripts, and then it's gonna boot up your web browser that you have a default to. You're going to see that once it boots up, it's going to have this homepage here. Now the beauty of working with React, and Angular has this as well, is that when you have your development server running, you can go ahead and edit this in real time, and you can do blah, and then unsave. Control S. I don't know why my save isn't working, but now on save we have blah, S, and then S. Pretty cool. Okay, so what we're gonna do is just delete everything inside here. And hit enter. Oh, and delete that too. Hit enter, and this should break. Awesome, that's exactly what we want. We're gonna go ahead and delete this middle part here because you need to keep import React from React, right? That's an integral part. We're gonna go to our CSS, hit Control A, delete everything in there, and hit Control S. And now we can start with just a very basic building block to get things up and running. All right, so what I like to get started with is just changing things to a scoped workspace. So I like using const and then changing this to an arrow function. Does the same thing, it just, to me, it's just my normal workflow. I like the scope of things. You can use function app, I'm just not going to. We're gonna do a return statement. Great, and then we're going to create a div. Inside that div, we're gonna create an input, and we'll start there. Now if we go over here, we can see there's an input field, and we're good to go. Now what I wanna do is I wanna get that input field centered. So let's do class name of, we'll do auto complete, save, and then we'll do class name of container center. We should do camel case. Okay, we'll go over here and we'll do container center. We're gonna do display grid, justify content center. We're gonna do grid template row, and we're going to do it 400 pixels, and then our autocomplete, we're going to do align self center, and that should bring everything nice and center to the screen. Perfect. Okay, so what do we need to have happen? Well, we need something to happen on change. Like when we hit F or A or B or whatever letter, that needs to trigger an on change event. So we'll do on change, and we're going to go ahead and capture the event. We'll put that closing bracket in there. And it's going to be an arrow function, and then let's call it autocomplete. And then we're going to pass the event into our function called autocomplete. So we'll do const autocomplete equals our event arrow function, and we're just going to console, we're going to log our event. Hit save. Awesome. So now I'm going to bring up our inspector tool, bring over my console. I'm going to hit A, and we can see here a synthetic event gets logged, which is awesome. Everything's kind of set to null right now. That's because this is a synthetic event that we're looking at. Nothing big. What we can do is we're going to do event.target.value, okay? And what we're doing is we're grabbing the onChange event. We're targeting the value of the input HTML element, and we're going to log that. So if we type in F, it logs F. R, A, N, K, we can see it's logging everything that we type out, which is good because ultimately this is kind of what we want to run against to create an autocomplete field. So we've got that printing out. All right. What we need to do is we need to create our array. So let array equals an array of names. We're going to do Adam, Anthony, Bob, Billy, Carol, Kathy, whoops, there we go. We'll do Kevin, we'll do Kyle, Frank, and Fred. We'll call it a day after Fred. Perfect. All right, so then we need to trigger something to happen in this function, in our autocomplete function. We need to be able to trigger some stuff to happen. So we're going to, since we're using a functional component, we're not using a stateful component, we're going to use the React hook called useState. So we're going to do const, and we're going to say value, set value will be the name of the function we call, and we'll do equals use state. Excellent. And I really like that when you just type something in and hit enter, VS Code imports it in. It's just, it makes my life so much more simpler. Now, sometimes it'll import the wrong thing in. I've had that happen to me so many times with Angular, but you figure it out and you deal with it, right? So it's going to yell at us for a little bit while we have this. So we're just going to we're going to comment that out, which I think is fine. It's going to yell at us for useState too, but whatever. So the basic idea is we need to loop through this array, right? So we're going to do array.forEach. And we're going to have X be the item of the array we're going to loop through. And so what I mean by that is for each is going to start, it's going to loop through each item, right? When it does that, we want X to represent the current item it's looping through. Okay, so first it's going to start with Adam. So X will equal Adam, and then Anthony, and then Bob, and then Billy, right? So X is going to equal each of those as it completes this for each loop and moves on to the next. So what do we want to happen? We want to say we're going to do an if value, and it's going to be x dot substring. Okay, now when we hover over this, substring is going to essentially look at a string of numbers at a given length. Okay, and so we need to tell it, where do you start from? Right, do you start at the beginning? Do you start at the middle? We're going to tell it to start at index 0 of the item of the item that's being given to us. So again, x is going to be the item in our array. So index 0 is going to start at letter A, or B, or C, right? It's going to start at the very first letter. Now we want to say, go up to this amount. And we want that to be flexible, because as we're typing things in our autocomplete field, it needs to look at each letter as it's being typed. We can't really function in autocomplete form without it watching a pattern, right? So if it's ADA, we need to be, oh, that must mean Adam. Or if it's just B, we need it to bring us a list of all the things in B. So what we're going to do is we're going to do event.target.value.length. Okay. And then in order to make sure that it's matching our input values, we're going to say to uppercase. Now, why do I do that? Well, let's say the user it has their caps lock on and everything they're typing is in uppercase. Well, obviously our array isn't, right? Only the first letter in our array is uppercase. So we want to be able to take away any mistakes or anything that could cause our autocomplete form not to work properly. So then what we need to do is we need to compare this substring with the actual value of our input field. And in order to do that, we're going to do exactly equals. That's how I remember triple equals, is exactly equals. And then event, oops, I got my caps lock on. Event.target.value, and then again to uppercase. So our substring is going to be uppercase, and our target value that's getting passed to us from our input field is going to be uppercase. And it's just going to look for matches. Okay, so we're going to have that there. And then let's say if it does, why don't we console log X. Hit save. So we got that here, we got this here. Let's do A. Hey, look at that. Now it's saying Adam and Anthony. And I typed in D, and now it's only suggesting Adam. Great. Let's try Bob. Great, look at that. It says Bob. Now when I hit delete, right, it's going to go ahead and predict all of them. That's fine. We're not going to cover how to make sure that doesn't happen. It didn't matter in my interview, so whatever. We'll get you to a good point, and then you can play around with it on your own, because that's the beauty of learning to code. So we can see if we type in G, nothing happens, but if we type in H, nothing happens. F, Fred, Frank, okay, cool. Stuff is happening. Great. So now that we've got a console.log, we need to store this value, okay? And I'll explain why we need to store the value in just a little bit. But for now, let's do an array called suggestion. We'll just make that an empty array. So we're going to do suggestion.push, and it's going to push X. And if we console log suggestion, right, we can see here that if we type in F, now it's logging everything that matches in suggestion. And the reason why there's two things here is because we're doing a for each, right? We can see here it's doing for each. So everything that matches, it's going to do it once, and it's going to push Fred. So suggestion is first going to have, Frank, and then it's going to do it again, and it's going to push Fred. So it has two. Awesome. Now we need to figure out, okay, we've got this suggestion array. It's storing these variables. We want to be able to ultimately display these suggestions to the user and have them act on it, right? So like if you go to Google and you type in something in the search bar, it says a drop down. Oh, did you mean this? Did you mean this, right? So we want to have that similar effect. So let's do another div. And inside it, let's create a variable called list. And up here, we're gonna do another use state. We'll do const an array, which is list, which is our variable, and set list is going to be the function we call to set that variable with our use state React hook. Now I'm gonna uncomment that too. Okay, down here, we're going to go ahead and I'll leave that for now. So set list. What do we need to have happen with set list? Well, we need to go ahead and we need to loop through our suggestion. We actually need to map through it. And why? Well, I want to go ahead and manipulate the suggestion array. So typically you want to use map only if you're going to manipulate the existing array. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So we need x to be passed in there, and we'll do index as well. And now we've got our suggestion.map where x is still being inherited. X is still our item in here. It's passing down, and now we have an index. Let's return a paragraph tag that's going to have x as the value. But awesome, so it's going to have a value of x, but we need, again, something to happen. We need it to be interactable. That's not a word. We need to be able to interact with it. Well, first we need to set a key, and our key is going to be equal to the index. Now there's some debate over, hey, should you have it equal to the index? In my opinion, all it needs to be is a unique value, and typically index is going to be a unique value. Unless you have multiple arrays that share the index, that's probably not a good idea at that point. For our example, that's not an issue. Well, we need to be able to have it be able to interact with. So let's see what happens with it right now, okay? We're gonna type in F. Awesome. It now populates down here, Frank and Fred. And it does that because our setList function is getting the value of our suggestion array. So list is now the value of our suggestion.map after we've manipulated it. So X is going to be Frank and Fred. Well, great. That's there, but it doesn't really help us auto-complete it, right? So what do we need to do? Let's create an onClick event. So on click, we're gonna have to do something very similar to what we did down here. Is we need to take the event, arrow function, and then let's do set input value EX. We want to pass in both of those. All right, and now that brings me back to why did we need a set value and a value? Okay, I'm about to show you. We're going to put value down here. And it's going to have that variable of value, okay? We're going to create a function up here, const set input value. And that's going to equal our event and our variable, our item of the index of the array we're looping through. We'll arrow function over, bada boom. So now that we have our set input value, that needs to be in, I'll make that a capital I because we want it to be camel case. Simply what we need to do is we need to do set value equal to X. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to set our input value X, which is going to change our autocomplete field. Now you might ask yourself, okay, hey Kev, why did we need to pass in the E? Well, without the E, without the event, our onClick function isn't going to work. So you need to pass that in. Even if you don't use it, you still need to pass it in order for React to recognize that it needs to make this a clickable event. So now when we go to our page, we click F. If we click on Frank, it auto-completes our input field to Frank. And if we delete it, right, we can click Anthony or Bob, Billy, Carol, whatever. Let's go ahead and just delete that. Carol. Sweet. All right, so an issue we're having is we'll type in Carol. Okay, and if I click Carol, and then, oh, I made a mistake. I actually wanted to type in Bob, and I hit the backspace. You can see nothing's happening when I click the backspace. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. A simple fix is we need to set value of event.target.value. That'll help us there. So now if we click Carol, and I click that, click back in, I can go ahead and delete and make sure things are where they need to be. So great, now that's fixed. But we can see here that we don't have anything in our field, but this whole list is being predicted. Let's go ahead and just fix that real quick. Simply, down here, we want to put a semicolon there. Awesome. So if event.target.value.length is exactly equal to 0, well, then let's just set list to an empty string. We'll hit a colon, bada boom. So now we have Carol. I can click it, awesome, it fills it in. And now as I'm deleting it, if nothing's there, there's no prediction. Now I can do Adam, awesome. Let's do A, click Anthony, great. Everything is working well, and we have successfully completed making an autocomplete field. Awesome. Well, I hope you found that valuable because honestly, it's one of the things that really helped me get my position as the architect at American Express. You gotta know how to be able to do these things live, under pressure, and I think you can get there. Obviously, you just need to learn how to code. You'll be able to follow along my tutorials. YouTube's full of other people if I'm not the one to help you out. But ultimately, guys, coding has changed my life. I hope these videos are valuable to you, and I hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and stay healthy. We'll see you guys next time.